That's a really good question, and I often tell my students that it's really important to think about just saying yes to everything. And even though that can lead to a tremendous amount of overwork if you're not careful, it's amazing what types of opportunities will arise just from simply immersing yourself in environments and in situations that you may never have imagined would be productive and helpful ones to you. And just about every musician I know can kind of link their career back to a single event or a single experience, and that's what led to their career flourishing down the road. And in my case, I can link it directly back to the Music Academy of the West and the people I met there and the networks that happened and the way things expanded from that. And I've known this to be the case with so many musicians. And the problem is that you just never know exactly when that specific thing is going to happen. And you probably won't know what's happening until 5 or 10 years later that was the one. So what I would tell young professionals who are college ages, basically immerse yourself in jazz, immerse yourself in classical, play new music, and just go after it all. If you have an opportunity to take a gig that looks kind of interesting but you're not making any money, take it, because you never know what's going to be yielding from that experience. The other thing I'd like to tell my students is to put away their instruments too and go and explore other arts fields. And in particular, there are direct corollaries between vocal instruction and what we do as flutists. So I love it when my students go and sing in a choir, or better yet, take voice lessons, because it opens the body, it opens the mind, and you think about the way you're approaching your instrument and approaching what you do as a musician in a wholly different way, but it has a direct corollary, again, to what we do as flutists. And I also like to tell my students, if they have any desire whatsoever to go into dance and theater, and whether it's just taking a class or actually going full-fledged into a production, as long as it doesn't take too much time away from the instrument. And that's a tremendous opportunity to just build on stage presence, build on your sense of your sense of physicality and what your body does when it's on stage. Because as we know, this is not just a listening art, it's actually how we present ourselves. Then there are other obvious things that I like to have my students do to prepare themselves as young professionals, including taking classes in the recording arts, taking classes in music technology is certainly quite helpful, because again, you just never know what is going to be yielded from this. I've seen time and again students think they're going down a certain path, and then all of a sudden something excites them, or an opportunity arises, and the path veers this way. And so I think becoming what I call a protean flutist is what we have to do. We have to be capable of adapting to any environment we have and going from there. And I also like it when my students put the flute away and explore other fields, such as philosophy or psychology, the physics of sound. All these things have a bearing on what we do and how we approach the instrument. And it's a tremendous opportunity, this age, between 18 and 25, or whenever you happen to be in school, to go out and explore these things, because you'll never have it quite the same. And so, although we have to put in the hours in the practice room, we have to play in ensembles with people, but what we do with the instrument in its case is, I think, perhaps equally as important as what we do with the instrument in our hands. This seems obvious, but I'm always surprised at how many people don't play piccolo. And when a third of the jobs out there are piccolo in an orchestra, you darn well better dust that thing off and learn how to play it. And so if you have the opportunity to take lessons from somebody when you're a student, or specifically on piccolo, do it. Because, again, there's going to be somebody sitting next to you who can't do it, and all of a sudden you'll have the opportunity to play, and you'll be the one with the job in this case. And I also, would encourage people who are college age to make sure they play piccolo in ensembles. Because as we know, there's a whole different thing, tuning to ourselves and then tuning with a bunch of people around us. And I remember for years playing in bands, and some really good bands, and I felt learning how to play in tune in a band, if I could do that, I could play in tune with anything. Orchestra playing is a piece of cake as far as tuning is concerned, if you know how to do it with a band. Let me think. So, professionalism. Even though that's not something we necessarily study, or it's not a class opportunity, it's never too early to start thinking in terms of how you are going to approach yourself, notice how you're going to approach the workplace. And so professionalism includes how you treat the people around you, showing up before rehearsals, showing up beyond fully prepared for the first rehearsal, and preparing in that fashion will get you ahead of the game, and you'll be ready to go out and basically play your first job without many of the growing pains that some people suffer in these situations. And as an extension of that, I also think the sooner people start taking professional auditions, the better off we are. And I can't remember the statistic, but it's something like, it's a garish number, I think 35 or 45 auditions that it takes to win a job. And so what that means is there's a value to perseverance, but also there's a process. And the sooner you start that process and understanding what it takes to prepare an excerpt to its highest level within your skill level, the better off you're going to be just once you get out there and graduate from school and just ready to go in and jump in and start taking auditions and being competitive in them rather than just kind of learning the routine, which is something you could have done as an undergraduate. Yeah, I think that's what I would have to say. But let me reinforce that these years of college are an excellent opportunity to learn all kinds of different skills. But in spite of that, for me at least, and what I admonish my own students to do is to make sure that you place practice as your first priority every day. So that means at the beginning of the day, or even before the beginning of the day, the previous evening, you know exactly when you're going to practice, what you're going to practice, how much you're going to practice that, and when you're going to do it during the day. And if you've got all that taken care of, the rest of it takes care of itself. Your social life will flourish, your classes will be fine, but the practice has to come first. And although that seems simple, it's something that can be challenging at times. So I think that's what I would say. And I will add that it's a fantastic degree, and it's a degree that can yield all kinds of opportunities that go beyond the flute. So if you're worried, ultimately, whether you're going to be a flutist and why are you doing this degree, I can tell you that there are flutists out there who are lawyers, or flutists who are doctors, or flutists who are accountants, all of whom, not all of them, many of whom still play and find themselves enriched for the experience they had. So don't worry about that, just do your job.